Hello book lover, welcome to my channel. My name is Kate if you're new here, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in September and October along with a couple current reads. Stick around if you're a Christian that loves to read and is looking for some clean fiction and nonfiction. It has been a long time since I have really dove into nonfiction books. It's typically not my main genre, but September and October have been really weird months for me when it comes to fiction reading, and there was a part of my soul that was just craving something that just wasn't a fictional story. Like my brain just was not connecting with fiction very well. So I dove into some Christian nonfiction books. I took it easy. There's not a ton of books here because I think it's important to digest this information, and it's not something that I feel like you can just sprint through like a novel. These nonfiction books gave me a lot of really thought-provoking things to ponder on, and I really enjoyed each and every one of these. Now, I haven't given any star ratings to these, but honestly, they were super good. So the first one is The Holiness of God by R.C. Sproul. So this one pretty much just dove into the idea of like what it means that God is holy. And it's something that's super hard for our human brains to comprehend because he is so holy, and it's something that we just cannot fathom the magnitude of what it means for God to be holy. And it was honestly super incredible to read and kind of get this perspective. One of the stories that he talked about from scripture was when God revealed himself to Isaiah, and I just want to read to you just this little part that I highlighted. In the flash of the moment, Isaiah had a new and radical understanding of sin. He saw that it was pervasive in himself and in everybody else. If you're not familiar with the story, essentially God revealed himself to Isaiah, and Isaiah pretty much just fell. He realized how horrible, I guess, humanity was and is in their sin when he was standing before God. God normally reveals our sinfulness to us a bit at a time. We experience a gradual recognition of our corruption. But like Isaiah, in that moment, he realized what his sinfulness was. He realized that he was not holy like God. God is just so holy, and we can never be the holy that he is. This was a good quote. We are to fear God, not with a servile fear like that of a prisoner before his tormentor, but as children who do not wish to displease their beloved Father. We come to him in confidence. We come to him in boldness. We have access. We have a holy peace. There is just so much impactful, good stuff. Each chapter went over something so different. Like, one of the things that I learned a lot about was actually Martin Luther and how people thought that he was insane. And if you don't know who Martin Luther is, he is the one who started the Reformation on October 31st. So if you don't celebrate Halloween, you could totally celebrate the Reformation. He's the one who nailed his 99 Thesis on the doors of the Catholic Church, and he is pretty much the reason we have the Bible in our hands today. He dove into a lot of the story from Martin Luther, and that was really interesting. Okay, I don't think I need to go on anymore on the holiness of God. It was just a really interesting read, and I would for sure recommend it. The next one I talked a little bit about in my last video, and that is Stop Asking Jesus Into Your Heart, How to Know For Sure You're Saved by J.D. Greear. Now, this book is so good. If you are somebody that struggles with your assurance of salvation, like if you are constantly wrestling with, am I a believer? Do I believe? Am I really saved? You know, all these types of things. If you are somebody who's like, do I need to get baptized again? Do I need to, you know, do X, Y, Z? This book is for you. It was so good for me because that's something that I have struggled with. And this book gave me so much peace. It goes over what does it mean to believe? What does it mean to repent? What is true saving faith? Because there are people who say they're saved, but they're not truly saved. And I don't say that to give you anxiety. True saving faith, you never lose your salvation if you are in a true saved faith state, I guess. But this book So good. It's just a little bit over 100 pages, and I would recommend this for anybody. I would recommend this for new believers because I think that's something that they could probably wrestle with a lot. Stop asking Jesus into your heart. I don't really know what else to say about this, but it was fantastic. My last nonfiction book that I have for you is one I'm currently reading, and I'm not far in this by any means. I've literally read one chapter, but I've enjoyed it so far. And that is Gentle and Lowly by Dane Ortland. I just have this because the book is actually upstairs. This is the heart of Christ for sinners and sufferers. And let me tell you, the first chapter is pretty much just going over how Jesus says, I'm gentle and lowly at heart. And in scripture, the heart is pretty much like the center of the person. That's why it's so important to guard your heart. And in the first chapter, I learned there's only one place in all 4 of the Gospels where Jesus talks about who he is at heart. And it's in Matthew. I can't remember exactly what verse. What is it? Matthew 11:28, come to me all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Okay, so it's actually Matthew 11:27, I think, because it's the one like right before that. It was such a good like deep dive on those couple verses, the first chapter, so I'm really excited to keep getting into this book, and it's pretty much just who Jesus is and learning who Jesus is at his core. So many people recommended this book, so I feel confident saying I could recommend it to you too, because literally almost all of my Christian friends have read this book and they were like, Gentle and Lowly, you need to read Gentle and Lowly, and so I got it. My page for Matthew 11 in my Bible literally has sticky notes all over it, and there's just so much that was just being explained, and the Bible is just so rich, you guys. Like, there is so much in it that you don't always realize, and that's why we can continuously be learning about God and his word our entire lives. We will never hit a point where we can't learn anymore, and this book just like blew my mind in chapter 1. So going to continue reading Gentle and Lowly this month. Next, I want to go over the 2 Christian fantasy books that I've read. So quick note, because I know I have quite a few new people on here. I am a Christian and I am okay with reading fantasy books. However, the fantasy books that I will be reading have deep theological themes through them, allegory in them. There is no like a glorification of sin. The books that I'm choosing are very good, like right versus wrong. I know some people are not about fantasy, they don't want it, and you know what, that's okay, but just know that that's something that I really personally enjoy. It's not something I feel convicted about. It's not something that strays my relationship from Christ. I love reading the allegory in these books, and these 2 had quite a bit. So this first one is Resistance by J.L. Knight, another super incredibly highly recommended Christian fantasy book, and you know what? It was so good. I am like a chronic series starter and then I just stop. So I need to continue with this one because I enjoyed it so much. I think I've talked about this a few times on my channel already, so I don't want to go too much into it. But essentially, there is this emperor who is reigning over this territory, and there are these people who follow a god named Elam. That Elam is representation of our Christian God, and this emperor basically wants to get rid of everybody who believes in Elam. So it kind of goes over some themes of like persecution, but also like the perseverance of faith, like to the end. It is so good, and it's a great story. You've got several points of views from it, and every single chapter I was incredibly hooked. So Resistance by J.L. Knight is one that I would for sure recommend. If you are new to Christian fiction and you love fantasy, this was a great one to start with. Next up is Smoke and Glass Slippers by Miss Ashley Willingham. This was one of the most unique books I have read in a long time. Ashley Willingham, I don't know what it is about her writing, but she has a way of just telling super unique stories, but also the allegory and the Christian themes in her books are really interesting. So in this book, you are following a male's point of view. This is technically a romantasy. You're following this guy, and there are different levels in this society. So this is a dystopian novel. I have not read dystopian in a long time, so there were some things that were just like a little complicated for my brain because there was a lot lot that went into this world building, which is awesome. But he is basically the lowest level of person, and this is a Cinderella retelling from his point of view. So basically he gets transformed and he enters this competition to woo the princess because she's going to become the emperor. He's also on a mission though to kill her dad. And so we got a little bit of drama in there and some secrets and some struggles back and forth, because obviously a romantasy, so you know he's going to fall for her. But also the allegorical themes that I saw in this were really cool. A huge one was actually like the representation of the Israelites being enslaved, because this lowest level of people, they were enslaved in this one area. There was so much more in this, but that was one of the main things that when I pieced it together, I was like, whoa, she did a great job at telling that kind of Christian theme story, but putting it in a dystopian fantasy novel. So that is Smoking Glass Slippers. It was really great. I enjoyed it. I highly recommend Ashley Willingham. I feel like you guys are just gonna hear me talking about her and her books for the rest of the time that she's publishing books, because I have loved what I've read by her so far. Alright, the next book, again, I just talked about this in my last video, so I'm not going to talk your ear off on it, but that is The Mysterious Benedict Society by Trenton Lee Stewart. This is just a middle grade book. It is not a Christian fiction or anything, but in this book you are following these 4 children who are super gifted in their own ways, and they essentially get entered into this school, and while they're at this school, they're on like a secret mission because there's a bunch of weird stuff going on in this world, but only children can solve the problem. And so they kind of are this ragtag crew of 4 unlikely, like very different personalities getting together to solve this mystery of what is happening. This book was full of twists and turns, full of so many laughs. There were so many just hilarious moments. If you read this book, keep an eye out for Kate. She was my favorite character through the entire story. She was amazing. The themes throughout this about found family and belonging were just so well done, and I cried so much in the last chapter of this book. I absolutely adored it. There was one moment though where there's a chapter called like Watch Out for the Gemini or something like that, so there are just a couple sentences like where they're talking kind of about astrology, so I just want to make that known if this is a book that you want your kids to read. But it wasn't anything that was like, oh, you should believe in this. It wasn't anything crazy. Like, it wasn't, I don't feel like glorifying astrology because it was like one chapter, but it was like a clue for part of their mission. So I just want to make that known because I know that is something that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. I personally am super uncomfortable with astrology. When people ask me what my sign is, I tell them it is stop, because it is not something that I am okay with. So when that chapter, that just kind of threw me off a little bit, but it wasn't so bad. So I just want to let you know that, especially if you are a Christian parent and that's something that you want to be cautious of. Oh boy. The next book that I read was All She Ever Wanted by Lynn Austen, and this book was so incredible to me, but this book is not for everybody. This is a multi-generational story where there is a lot of trauma and abuse in the past of these 3 generations of women. So the story starts, you are following Kathleen, and she has a super strained relationship with her teenage daughter, and she doesn't understand like why her and her teenage daughter can't connect, why her teenage daughter is acting out, and they never spend any time together. And she gets this opportunity to go back home for her dad's birthday, his like 80 something 90th birthday. Like, he's really old and she hasn't seen him in like 30 something years, and she accepts to go, and she takes her daughter with her to meet this side of the family. She's never talked about her family to her daughter, so her daughter knows nothing about her upbringing, her trauma. So there is so much that is unpacked in this story. The story of redemption was so good. There was some faith conversation through it because Kathleen is a Christian, and it's really cool to see like how she was brought up, what impacted her to become a Christian, because I felt like it was really similar to my own testimony. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, but I had these neighbors that were incredible, and I can't tell my testimony without talking about them because they truly showed me who Jesus was. They taught me about Jesus, but they showed me who Jesus was, and she had a neighbor like that when she was a kid who showed her who Jesus was. You are going back in time through these 3 generations. There's Kathleen when she was growing up, and it was just kind of a lot of hard stuff. It wasn't a very safe home that she lived in. And then you have her mom, and her mom, there's some war talk and a lot of grief in her mom's story. And then her grandmother's story, that was just like drama central, but it was so interesting to read about. So that is All She Ever Wanted by Lynn Austen. There are a ton of trigger warnings in this book, so I'm going to put them in the description. Trigger warnings for all of these books are going to be in the description box, but I need to say, like, the biggest trigger warning in this that people need to know about is there is suicide in this. And I know it's really heavy, but it is, I think, one of the more important trigger warnings that I feel like I just need to say actually on camera, but everything else is going to be in the description. This was my first Lynn Austen book, and I'm so excited to read more by her. This was so well done. Next up is a book that will have you giggling and kicking your feet, and also your heart being warm and it feels like a hug, and it's just so good. Sense and Suitability by Pepper Basham. This is probably one of my favorite books that I've read all year. It was so good. So in this book, you are following Emmeline, and she was going to be engaged to Simon, but things quickly, unexpectedly changed when he ended up having to become the head of his household, the head of his siblings, and all kinds of stuff happened with him. So they didn't get engaged. It has been 2 years. Simon had left the place where they live, and he came back 2 years later. Emmeline is still not courting anybody. She's still not married. This is a Regency romance, if I didn't say that, by the way, which was just like all the vibes. It was so good. But basically these two, they are reconnecting. There's a lot of stuff going on with Simon's family, but his siblings were such a fun part of the story. And then Emmeline's aunt, oh my gosh, Emmeline's aunt might be one of my favorite characters ever written. Every time that woman opened her mouth, I was like laughing so hard I was like tearing up. Like, I had to take photos of things that she said and send them to my friends so somebody could laugh with me because she's just so funny. Sense and Suitability, this is a Christian romance, and there were so many good faith threads through this book. I don't think it was so overdone that it was overly preachy Christian, but it also wasn't underdone where I felt like it was surface level, because I know I talked about that in my last vlog for you guys. This was a really good balance of it, and just the way that they show how they're Christians in their daily lives. Honestly, I loved that in this book, and I would love to see this more. The way that Emmeline was like self-sacrificing to love and serve others. The way that Simon was also self-sacrificing in a way to serve his family. There were just so many good moments in this book. I think this is going to be on like my top books of the whole year. I don't know how it wouldn't be. I loved it so much. So this one actually just released too, so definitely get your hands on this because you don't want to miss this story. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it's just all the things, and I love it. One other book that I actually read on Kindle Unlimited was Forget Me Not by B.R. Goodwin. Now this book I have mixed feelings about because she is a Christian author. It is considered a Christian romance, but I felt like it was a very surface level faith. But it was fun. So if you want just a fun, clean romance book to read, this one would be great. You are following Dinah, who is a pretzel shop owner who just moves back to, I think it was her hometown maybe, and she connects with this flower shop owner next door, and he starts sending her mixed signals. He's like sunshine one day, grumpy the next. There's just a lot of whiplash that she has going on, and she's just like, what is happening? And so this book, it was like a fun mystery in the beginning because you're trying to figure out what's actually going on. It was a fun story. It was cute. There were some like faith things, like they would mention prayer here and there and things like that, but it wasn't overly Christian, if that makes sense. I thought it was cute. It was fun. It wasn't my favorite thing ever, but I think that was also a mood thing for me because I just have been craving deeper connection with the Lord. And so when I read that and I knew it was a Christian book, I think I was just hoping for more. So it's not a bad book. It's definitely not. It was fun. It was cute. I would just go into it knowing you're not going to get super deep faith threads through it, but it's fun. Next, let's go through the 3 books that I'm currently in the middle of. I have had the weirdest reading month in October. I have truly been in my Bible so much this month, which has been amazing, but because of that, I haven't read as much, so it has taken me so long to read some of these books. I technically still have a buddy read to do with Alicia from For the Love of Christian Fiction and with Amanda from Book Lover Amanda. Ladies, if you're watching this, I am so sorry. I will get to this the beginning of November. My heart has just been called so much to just the Lord and wanting to spend time in His Word. So at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing that we should be reading. So I'm not that mad, but I feel kind of bad because I haven't read that buddy read yet. I digress. Let's talk about the 3 books that I am in the middle of. So the first one is The Curious Inheritance of Blakely House. I think I'm like 80% of the way through this, so I'm almost there. This book, it isn't what I was expecting, but that's not a bad thing. This book is so beautifully written. I think that Joanna Davidson Politano is for sure my favorite Christian writer that I have read thus far in just the contemporary Christian genre, because there's something just so poetic about everything that she writes, but it's easy to follow. And there's so many quotes that I have just highlighted in this book. You are following Sydney, and she basically has this woman show up one day to tell her she has inherited her estranged uncle's house that she's never met. So she journeys to this place called Blakely House, and it is not what she was expecting. There are a lot of just like weird things that go on in the house that at first it seems kind of spooky, but then you realize it's not spooky and it's actually super cool. The themes of serving others, belonging in this. So Sydney has just like a very calculated brain. Like she is very A plus B equals C. And she's just a very black and white type of person. She is a tinkerer. She loves to work on clocks and things like that. So her brain is just very like straightforward. But what's interesting is there are people around her that are believers and are trying to talk with her about God throughout this book though too. And she's kind of like, I don't know, why would I believe in that? So there's just this story of like this girl who feels like she's just broken because she thinks so differently than everybody else and people never understand her. She just is such a different type of person. She's not like the other girls, but it's so interesting seeing her character kind of go through this story and see how she responds to people trying to talk to her about God. You are kind of uncovering the mystery of who her uncle was, and then you're also kind of piecing together a romance that once was that nobody really knew about through letters and things like that. So if you like stories with letters and messages back and forth, highly recommend. And by the way, this is 1901, so by messages I don't mean like text messages. There are just like letters back and forth. And then there's kind of like a romance blossoming between Sydney and one of the people at Blakely House. It's not the main part of the story, but when it is in the story, it's just very tastefully, beautifully well done. And yeah, so I'm really enjoying this. It's not what I was expecting, but it is super good. Next up, Anne of Green Gables. I am 1 chapter into this because I'm in the middle of so many other books. I kind of want to finish all of them to then just focus on this. So I'm not very far, but I will say chapter 1 had me laughing so hard at, what was her name? Was her name like Miss Rachel? Yes, Miss Rachel Lynde is surprised, and you're kind of just getting to know this neighborhood a little bit and how the inner workings of this place, Avalon, or Avalon, something like that. So you are kind of getting a sense for the neighbors and who they are, and Miss Rachel is just like that super nosy neighbor who's poking her nose in everybody's business and wants to go and gossip about everything. A neighbor leaves one day and she doesn't know why. She's like, he never leaves his house. What's going on? Why is he leaving his house? So she goes over to his house to talk with his wife and realizes that they are adopting a little boy, which I'm assuming he's gonna come home with Anne instead of a little boy. And basically that's just like the gossip of the whole town. And so it's very cute so far. One chapter in, not very far, but I have enjoyed what I have read. I think I'm going to read this along with an audiobook because for some reason with classics, because they have language that we don't typically use anymore, they have different verbiage for things. For some reason, it always helps me to have an audio with the classics. And somebody had told me that I need to do the one by Rachel McAdams on Audible. But so far, I have started it, and so far, I have enjoyed it. And the last book that I'm currently reading, the third book, no, the fourth, because I'm reading a nonfiction too, but A Writing Upon the Sand by J.M. Kirkley. So this author actually sent me her book for review, which was just so incredibly sweet and kind of her. And I'm just in a historical mood right now, I think. This is set in Galveston, Texas in the 1900s. This is going to be surrounding the Great Flood that happened there. I haven't gotten to that part yet. So basically what's happening right now is Emily, she leaves her home where everybody treats her very poorly. She gets this opportunity to be a governess for, I think it's her cousins technically. And so she decides to move in with her aunt and her cousins and to teach them, and she's just starting to educate them. She runs into like this pastor at one point, like towards the beginning, and I really liked his character. And then you also we're starting to meet her neighbor at the point I'm at. I think I'm 18% in, so I'm not too far, but you're meeting her neighbor and he just kind of seems like rough around the edges. He's got a lot going on. So that's pretty much where I'm at. There's not too crazy much happening yet, but I know it's going to pick up once the flood hits this area. So I'm really interested to see how all of these characters end up in the flood together, like how the story comes together. But I read the author's note and she has been studying this topic for 20 years. That's how long it took her to write this book. So we can know that this is going to be super historically accurate. And yeah, I'm really enjoying Emily and her character. I'm loving everything. It's a very simple read. It's not something that's gonna have you thinking what the heck is going on. This is on Kindle Unlimited if you have Kindle Unlimited, and she is an indie Christian author, and I think we need to support our indie Christian authors more. So far, so good. It's cute, it's interesting, and it's keeping my attention. So there we have it. Those are all of the books that I read in September, October, and am currently in the middle of reading. I want to know in the comments, if you've made it this far, what was your favorite book that you've read so far this fall? Or you can leave me a book emoji. As always, I appreciate you guys so much for your love and support. Also, I want to ask a favor. If you have any videos that you love watching from Christian booktubers or ideas that you would love for me to do, please share those. Okay, Zion is crying, so I'm going to go. Thank you so much for your continuous support. Please don't forget to like and subscribe because that really does help me. And I love you, and I will see you next week.